Good morning, everybody. It's a Tuesday on CliffCentral.com. And lucky you. Look, you got me, you got Lebang. Isn't that great? We are here to look after you first thing in the morning. Lebang says this weather, like anytime anything changes in the weather, it's like she's directly attached to it. Everything happens directly to her, right? That's what's going on with her at the moment. And it looks like she's frozen as well. Oh well, we'll figure that out. Good morning. What we need to do is make sure that the people in the studio start on time, because this morning it's their fault that we are a minute late. Not me and Lebang. Right, Lebang? It's not us. Got to unmute your
we are
thing.
on time.
Yeah, we're on time. We're there today.
Yeah, no, we're here. Don't know about anybody else.
Don't know what's happened with your internet. It's just suddenly, it's giving trouble. It's giving us problems. Your internet. Yeah, it's sort of up and down. Yeah, I can hear you. It's just not. It's not very.
I should just leave. Just go to Australia. Can you hear me?
I've had enough. I've had it. You know, nothing works in this country. It's enough. I've had it.
All right, let's get going. Things to do. We'll be joined in a moment or two by the team in the studio. Got them running around trying to fix things at the moment. And it's also dark when you wake up now. So it's officially started to happen. You know, there's that point where you go, oh, okay, all right, I get it. Now we're moving into that time of year. All right. Because for the last while, you know, I wake up at 5:30 and it's light. And then suddenly, before you even know it, because you don't really, it's so gradual that you don't really pick it up. And then eventually you're like, oh, God, it's dark. It's dark when I wake up.
It's absolutely happening.
Yeah.
Like winter is knocking. Like it's rainy. Yesterday was like rainy and crappy. This morning was just like it's gloomy. Like it's over, guys. Whatever summer this was for us in Joburg, in inverted commas, it's done.
It's done. But you were saying like you get affected by the weather, and maybe it's a pregnancy thing. But what do you think happens there? Do you get like sinusy when it rains?
Not even just when it rains. Like it's a definite pregnancy symptom. Like being all like sinusy and stuffy nosed. That's like every morning. But when it's like extremely cold and it's like it's cloudy or like it's gloomy like it is today, it's even worse. So I'm just like, this is my life now. Every morning, if I don't have like a cup of tea or like ginger, it's nonsense. But I'm alive, which is what counts.
It is absolutely devastating what a child does to someone's body when they're inside them growing. Devastating.
Dude, it's horrible. It's just nonsense. I'm sure like by now I know what to expect. I mean, it's my 4th pregnancy, but it still catches me off guard every time. All the time, I'm like, oh, why am I paying? Oh, it's because I'm having. Oh, why am I? Oh, it's because I'm having a baby. Every single time, it's like I forget that I'm actually sharing my whole body with this whole human. Like I was doing a bit of research last night about like some of the foods I should be eating and what I shouldn't be eating, because I had like so much sushi the other day and I just wasn't feeling okay. So I was like, shit, maybe I wasn't supposed to do that. And true to form, like the article was like, any sip of like liquor that you consume, it goes directly to your baby. So even if the doctor tells you it's okay to have 1 glass, don't you dare. So I was like, oh crap.
No, but you can't do sushi when
you can't do sushi when you're pregnant. Don't you know that?
Yeah, I know. Like you can't excessively. You can't have sushi. So I mean, you can have like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Like, but I love it, and I really take advantage of those sushi specials.
Verboten. I thought you can't do it.
No. Just don't overdo it. But yeah, other than that, hey dog, it is what it is. Woody wants
to know, can you name your child? Lebang, can you please name your child Lebang?
Woody, I'm so sorry to disappoint you. Woody, I hate to do this, but I just can't. Because Lebang is not a real thing. And I'm not rich like Elon Musk,
What is
where I can
Lebang?
just. What does that even mean? Like Lebang, like la, like the, and then bong, like the bong. Maybe,
Lebang is a
maybe.
child Lebang.
Yeah, like the bong, like the weed bong.
Oh,
Hi,
hey, morning, you.
Bakh'abantu. Hi.
What's
Oh,
happening,
good
dude?
morning to you too, adults. Hey, technical issues, guys. Guys, I
Why
was
does
in
it,
studio.
so, why do you sound like shit in that studio? Don't we have state-of-the-art equipment in there to make you sound better?
So I'm trying to set it up. I'm on a tablet currently, so I'm still trying to set that up in the background. So it's like it might change, but like yeah, I'm here
How
on
8
embarrassing.
time.
minutes.
How embarrassing!
How
I'm
embarrassing.
young. I'm in the studio, and like people are like at home. Like, guys, I'm embarrassed.
8 minutes. What does that equal? 100 rand, 200 rand, 800 rand.
How about
Sorry, I remember people saying interns don't count. Who said that? Lebang.
Ethan wants
Actually,
to, maybe you can call your child Jabong. Yabong. These
okay, so
these are some of
these
the
are all
stupidest
terrible.
suggestions I've ever heard. Jesus.
No, these are all nonsense. Sorry, guys.
All right. Now, I do not want to go down this road because now we've got all the yentas climbing in saying, don't eat sushi when you're pregnant. Guys, if she has a child with 8 arms and 17 nostrils, that's her problem, all right? Let her
So
do
be
whatever she
it.
wants. You know, I'm so
Yeah.
I had this conversation with someone on Sunday. Like the people, and Tracy, you know, I love you, Ron, I love you, but like, guys, don't tell other people what to do. If they fuck it up, that's on them. Just leave people alone. I'm so sick of people who tell other people what to do. I saw it happen yesterday in the shops. I saw someone go up to someone else and start saying, you know, you should do this way. And just stay alone.
Karen, relax.
I am so over people telling other people, even if you mean well. We've got too many people who mean well. All right? It's better that we just leave each other the hell alone now. Don't tell me where to go. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me that you believe in conspiracy theories, and don't tell me that you want everyone in the world to rise up against governments. I don't want you to tell other people what to do. I've just had it up to here. I've figured out that the people who bother me the most are the ones who tell other people what to do. Just leave people alone, okay?
What happened, Gareth? Who hurt you?
I don't know. It's just, out of all the things, when I think about what irritates me, it's not, you know, people who make willful, ignorant mistakes. It's not people who are mean. It's not even people who are genuinely evil, because there are some people like that. Although there's probably nothing you could do about evil people. It's the ones who tell the other ones what to do. Nobody has that space or that right. I don't take a do this or do that from anyone, including the president, and neither should you. All right, let's just stop it.
Well, in Ethan's, defense, Billabong is kind of an interesting name to go for. I mean, I'd consider it. I'd consider Billabong. Maybe get some free merch from them. Move to the beach. I'm quite open to that. Oh man.
Oh wow. Okay, so let's get into this because they've apparently decided we have a national meal. What is South Africa's national meal?
You don't want to know.
What is it? Tell us.
There's actually an image. If you can find it, just pull it up. There's a whole thing where there's a national meal, and if you zoom into South Africa, it's written Boboki, Boboti, Bobochi, whatever you pronounce it.
Boboti. What is that again? Is that like because I don't even know how to describe this. I'm not a foodie, I don't.
Dude,
isn't it the rice dish with bread? Also, like I don't know, like Cape Malay cuisine somewhere.
What I know is that it's wrong, and this is false advertising. I can tell you that for free. The South African national meal is not Boboti. It can't be. No, it has to be something else. At least like a bride meat or something.
Yeah, I think we all agree on bride.
Chisanyama.
I thought we were over there. I thought we were Chisanyama people. Anyway,
right.
Hands up if you've even ever had bobotie and you know for a fact you had bobotie.
Dude.
I haven't. You,
Sorry.
I
Bakh'abantu?
come from the Karoo. And I've never had boboti. It just sounded terrible.
All right. I don't think that's right. Who decided this? Who's this person? See, this again, deciding for other people. Who are these
Like I
people?
can see the Lesotho meal is seswa, okay. I can see there's pap somewhere there, cool. There's meat and pap as well in some of these other African countries. Like some of them, I'm like, okay, cool.
Can I just
But
say
I don't
how
even know.
half of these meals are so full of starch? They're just going to make all of us fat like ticks. Really, some of this is not healthy shit. You know?
No, it can't be. Karoo, roast, and steak. I mean, Bakh'abantu, what's going on? No, I think Gareth is right. He's got a point. Just stop telling people what to do and what to eat.
No. And all the generalizations, like, you're a woman, you must do this. You're a black man, you must do this.
Yeah.
No, stop it. We're sick of this crap. I really am. No, you must do.
Done.
Stop. Just don't tell people what to do. If we can all stop doing that for like a week and watch how the world gets better, I'm telling you now. Let people, and if people are really going to screw things up for themselves, make their lives a whole lot worse, let them.
I think if we took that energy and we put it into ourselves, that same energy that we spend running around, looking at other people's lives, telling other people what to do, how to live, if you do that to yourself, I think we'd have like a happier people in general.
Oh, you joking? The world it would be like those songs where they talk about peace and love and all the things.
Kumbaya, motherfuckers. Kumbaya.
All right, but let's just think about this meal thing seriously for a second here. I'm pretty sure that we did agree as a country. At one point, we even had this huge national debate about it, that it was essentially any kind of meat on an open flame that's South Africa. We're not like the French, who have these fancy cordon bleu meals. We don't work on things that you have to put in the oven for 17 hours, or things that you need a certain special piece of equipment. You know what South Africans need? Fire.
Straight up
fire, meat.
Fire and some kind of meat. And let's just say, for the sake of keeping it simple, because people are going to say, oh, well, it's a very broad category, beef. Well, they should keep it at beef. Like any piece of cow roasted on an open fire is a South African. That is as complicated, and some salt on it. That is as complicated as our cuisine gets. So we're happy with that. I'm all for that. Better than boboti.
Dude, I'm sorry, boboti just reeks of like apartheid. It's such an ancient thing. I was just like, no, this can't. In the year 2022, I don't doubt that it's probably delicious. I think
it is more of a Malay thing. So I don't know if it's
it's a Cape Malay thing. It's not a white thing though. It's a Cape Malay, Cape Town, Kaapstad side thing. Yeah. I think you bake it. I think it has bread. I think it has rice. It's got like a bunch of stuff and spice.
That sounds like someone was trying to be too creative there. That's what.
Honestly, like if I think of the one meal that will bring us all together, like it's a braai. Just say braai, and more South Africans will understand what you're talking about.
What is the most horrible meal someone's offered you at their house that you actually couldn't even eat? It was so horrible. Ever had that happen? Because it happened to me not so long ago.
What was it?
They put out this thing with liver pate. Okay, now I'm not a cheese and biscuits guy. Your liver's, it's not a thing I like. Hey? And I know that
people is nonsense.
Some people are very into that. They put out this liver stuff, and I you know what I said? Thanks for it. No, I'm not hungry. Of course, I'm not going to say, oh, that's disgusting. But,
but like, do you eat it?
But these people were smearing it on biscuits or whatever.
Oh shit! Smearing it.
Of course, I didn't eat it. I can't eat that. You want me to turn green in front of these people who've invited me to their house? No. I know when I'm going to stay out of it.
what the sad thing about like that liver pate thing is that they package it so pretty. I know
Yeah.
Woolworths has it in like this beautiful little container, and they like describe it as if it's this rich cultural, like, it's just like, oh, it's liver pate, and you get curious. I once actually got offered it with like chips, like a chip dip, and I was excited because I was like, oh, Woolies,
Okay.
yo,
You go for it. I just know I know my own limits, and I know that's not something. Again, I'm not going to tell other people what to do. Even when it comes down to what you can eat at my house. Oh, you don't like that? Okay, well, bring your own,
Yeah.
like we discussed yesterday. So,
To each their own.
Chris says you're a moron because you thought that Bobotie was an apartheid thing. Annette says Bobotie's Cape Malay is zero to do with apartheid. Sanele says Bobotie sounds like something that you give to a Bobajan. Yeah, exactly. A Gatsby is a Cape colored thing. Yes, no, I've had a Gatsby that I've had.
That's
Especially
yummy.
a Gatsby is the best thing you can have after a big drinking night. Yo, that will sort you out, man. That's the real deal. Okay, and then Vyasan says, no, man, it's egg and mince and Mrs. Ball's chutney. Yeah, sure. Do you know what I did for breakfast the other day? This will show you how South African I am. I woke up, I did a whole bunch of things I needed to do. By 10:30, I was hungry, realized I hadn't eaten anything. And people always say to you, oh, breakfast is the most important meal, but I often skip breakfast, right? And I can get to 12 without eating, but I was pretty hungry. This is was it Thursday? Maybe Thursday. Anyway, so then I decided, no, bugger this. And I saw I had like one of those prepackaged steaks that they've got, like one of those, like, I don't know, 250, 300-gram things. I decided I was just going to have that. No eggs, no toast, no other fancy frilly, just a nice piece of steak for breakfast. You know how good that was?
That sounds like it was good.
It was good. I had a good day. Now, obviously, you know what the price of meat is, so you're not going to do that every morning for breakfast. But man, that was good.
Steaks and eggs sounds like a real man's breakfast.
It was.
Without the eggs.
I didn't even have the eggs, Bakh'abantu. It was just my breakfast was a plate with a piece of steak on it that I'd cooked.
How done was your steak? How done was your steak?
It was medium. I don't like it to be like cardboard, and I also don't like it to be
dripping in blood.
Yeah, but again, I'm not going to tell you how to eat yours. I'm careful about this. I'm going to live this way. I'm not going to be.
You need to cut it across the grain. Like there's rules to everything, guys. There's rules to everything.
Doesn't have to be rules. People must do their thing. But there is if you take a nicely cooked piece of steak and you do cut it into little strips, that's nice. That's the way to serve it. That's the way to, it's just it's so much more. It's easy to kind of get your head around a couple of strips of steak rather than the whole big fat thing. And this was only a 200, maybe 250-gram steak, so it wasn't a big one. But that was the best breakfast I've had. And I know some people would look at that and go, ugh, that's what you ate at 10:30 in the morning. Like, yeah. So Sanele says, Lebang, Gareth must hate the Indoda must movement. Will you explain? What is that?
I feel like I'm like definitely like a dictionary. It's basically like direct translation, a man must. So Indoda is a man. And It's just this really flawed thing where people say a man must do this or a man must do that. So of late, it's really become very crass. It's like a man must send me money for girlfriend allowance, or a man must, pay for my rent, or a man must take me to Dubai every month. It's really just quite unpleasant for the rest of us. But for like a lot of people enjoy it. A lot of people think it's funny, it's cool. I just think it's lame. A man must, just do his own thing in the same way that a woman must do their own thing.
I'd love to meet the people who came up with like a man must. They're probably the kind of people. They're the kind of people who no man wants to be with. It's usually precisely those kinds of women who don't find men that they deserve or that
Indoda must.
Right.
Indoda must.
Yeah, Indoda must. You must. Anyway, so Sanele says, I don't eat any insides. Don't give me liver and tripe and kidneys and lungs. This is Sanele. Whatever it is, I have no business digging into the insides of an animal like that.
Sure.
Yes.
Tough.
Hey, there's an argument for Mogodu there, guys. Guys,
Hey.
there's an argument for Mogodu. Like in the right weather, with the right circumstances, you will
With the
find a
right
boy eating
dombolo.
Mogodu. Dombolo.
You'll find a way.
Yeah, you'll find. It's a delicacy, guys.
Again, you do your thing. I'm not That's, offer me
No,
that
but like,
at your house. I'm not going to be eating with you.
but
Yeah,
like the
that's basically
scariest
saying,
thing.
do you?
The scariest thing though with like the Mogodu argument, right? So like I grew up like, okay, yeah, like so rural, we eat Mogodu, we eat like we don't call it Mogodu. Yeah, Lilusu, like from where I come from. It's a Mogodu is like a different language. So anyway, now like this aunt of mine shouts at my mom. My mom is like Umakoti, so she does all the work, right?
Right.
So my mom, like, she's so efficient. She cleans these like cow intestines. They super pink. They super clean. And then this aunt comes out of the house throwing a fit. She's like, "How can you clean them this clean?" My mom is like, "But you said I must clean them." And then
We
she's
need
like,
some
"No,
leftover."
the taste is in the." Yeah, you can finish that sentence.
No, guys, that's absolutely terrible. Ugh.
That's when I was like, never again. If it's not touched by my mom's hand, I will never eat it.
But there's a huge difference. And Gareth, I don't expect you to understand, but there's Mogodu that has been cleaned 100%. That is almost like it's white, like in color. It's light pink.
You're just making me ill. I'm
And
feeling.
you eat it. You eat it, and you're like, okay, cool. And then there's that one where they leave some extra, some, yeah, and then you taste the real.
No, Jesus. Count me out. You know what? This is all your fault, Lebang. You wanted to tell us what our national meal is, and now we're starting to go into dirty, dark places that I'm not.
Literally dirty,
dark, delicious.
You don't start your morning like this. This is dangerous. This is terrible.
Mogodu Tuesdays, guys.
Mogodu Tuesdays on CliffCentral.com.
Please let's not start Mogodu Tuesdays. It's like Carol says, anything except eggs and snails. Now, I do not understand why the French eat snails for the same reason that I don't understand why people eat Mogodu, right? Slimy, gross little snails. Another thing that'll make me queasy. Sorry. Don't like.
With cheese and a bit of garlic and butter, you've won.
I've heard those snails. Hey, everything with cheese and garlic. Yo.
It's the Chico. Anything
cheese
and garlic.
I've never had Mogodu though with cheese and garlic. Lebang, I think you stumbled onto something there.
Guys, we're moving away from Mogodu Tuesdays, okay? It's getting very difficult for me to concentrate here.
You actually started this by sharing the steak story, so let's all take responsibility for this.
All right, so let's move from one disgusting thing to another. Bakh'abantu's bit the bullet and he watched Sex in Afrikaans, which we were talking about yesterday, which people keep saying we've got to watch. I still haven't watched it. You've watched it.
I have a notepad and everything. Brought out the Spider-Man notepad.
Oh my God.
Came up with notes. Came up with notes.
All right.
Let me read from the page titled
Barry
Sex
Wronger.
in
Let's go
Afrikaans.
through your summary. Let's see what you got for us.
So like so the show is like, okay, number one, it's terrible, right? Like I only watched the first episode. I can't watch reality TV. I can't. But like, I bit the bullet as the intern.
Why is this terrible? Tell us.
No. I come from an Afrikaans background. Like everyone where I come from is Afrikaans. You're likely to find a person speaking Afrikaans and you're likely to find a person speaking Xhosa or English, right? So like everyone is like, I know that person. I know that everyone on the show is like, hey, I think I've met that guy. You Ricky, is that you? Like Frick. Like everyone is like that. So you come up with so there's a guy, right? They do the whole history about apartheid and how like they oppressed like sex and whatnot, and how the Afrikaans generations like this entire like culture of sex oppression.
I just want to pause you there, but that must have been interesting because I think people
was interesting.
People have forgotten that was another aspect of that horrible government that we had before, that they actually tried to make everybody puritanical. They tried to make us all as unsexy as possible. Like anything that even smelt remotely of sex was just banned in the public space. It was out of the question.
Yeah,
No
like
way
so
you
they
can have that.
talk about that.
TV,
They talk about
radio.
that. They talk about this magazine. You guys, I think you and Gord once spoke about this magazine. Like they talk about this magazine that was like the first sex magazine in South Africa. It blew up, and like how the apartheid government cancelled it like 7 times in 3 years.
That must have been Scope. Scope.
Yeah,
magazine.
Scope. Yeah, that's it. Scope. And like,
Yeah.
like Scope magazine's so tame compared to the stuff you see right now. But like, the Afrikaans government was like, no to Scope. But yeah, like that part was interesting. It grabbed my eye. And then you pan over to like, the sex industry, sex workers, but like all in Afrikaans, obviously. So you meet a man called Juan. He's a male sex worker and he strips for a living.
Yeah.
So he covers his face because he doesn't want to expose himself because he has other jobs and whatnot. But he said he started off like stripping. So it's like 900 per strip. Like I think it's 30 minutes. He goes for 30 minutes and then you pay and so forth, right? But then he started doing massages. And these go from 1.5 to 2K. And then like per hour. And then he does whatever you want. And then you have like him like dancing, like because they actually have footage of him like just grinding on these women. I'm like, Juan. And he's like super excited. He's like, yeah, I get to like really do this. And like some guys have to go to the club and they have to like pay for it. But like I get paid. And then I'm like, yo, it's so terrible. It is so terrible. But like like to quote Simpiwa yesterday, Akasa Word was the best one. Before it got like, so second lady, she's been a prostitute for 7 years. She gets paid $2,000 for what is called brown showers. First time I learned of this term.
What?
And she explains it. A brown shower, Gareth. She gets paid $2,000 for a brown shower.
I'm using my imagination and I think I know what that is, but I'm hoping I'm wrong.
So she says it's the equivalent. She says, number one, her clientele is primarily these conservative Afrikaans boere. So like they come to her for brown showers and a poof up them. I'm like, wait,
no,
what?
Dude. Oh, so that is what I thought it was. Oh, that's so revolting. You know,
like back to Mogodu.
Like, I know. Why can't we just stop talking about disgusting things this morning? It's so upsetting, for God's sake.
But like, she has like a terrible backstory about how she was abused and whatnot.
Of
but like,
course,
yeah. But like,
there's
then
no one who grew up in a healthy way is into that shit. Literally.
But like the kicker, like the main theme, like between these two sex workers, right? Before it got boring, because they had this group section with like a bunch of couples, like I guess this is what you saw, like a bunch of unattractive couples, like real people, and they're talking about their sex life, and it's like, ew, I don't want to know that.
Yeah.
Like, it's oversharing. But like she mentioned, this 165-year-old came to her. He wanted a prostate exam. And he's like, she's doing the world a service because there's this granny out there who doesn't want to give this man a prostate massage. So she's doing the service. She's like, they both have this, and like, I don't know, like, I don't want to say entitlement, but they have this thing that what they're doing is for the greater good of society. Like, you need to let out that energy, that sexual tension and whatnot.
No,
so
like, I agree, but do we have to have prostate exams and brown showers? That's what I'm asking. I mean, I don't mind. You know, maybe I'm boring. Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe you're conservative, Gareth.
Maybe I'm the real conservative, because maybe those people who pretend to be conservative and are politically conservative, they're the ones who like a brown shower. In which case, I don't know. Maybe I'm the real conservative.
But now, like, once it got to that, like, it's like a counseling session with a sexologist or something like that. And that's when it got boring. Like, I was like really struggling to keep up.
But you see, like, you have to, if you don't have that take on things, if you don't have a shrink there to help people or to help figure it out because the audience is sitting there asking questions, then it's just porn, really. I mean, it's just it's just sensational, right? And this is how you disguise it as being like meaningful and academic, and people do this. People do this. The moment they can make it about the way the mind works, your psychological interest in certain things, then it sounds like it's legit, and you can, this is on TV because it's legit. It's not just about sensation, which we know is nonsense, because the only reason people are watching is for the sensation.
My biggest takeaway though was this big dude. This big dude, he's like super like pura. He's like like I tell people like as a morphe, and because like I want them to come up to me and I want to hit them so I can tell them they were hit by a morphe. But obviously he calls them like faggots and morphe, like it's just like a bunch of vulgar language.
Jesus. And so but he's aggressive.
Yeah, he's aggressive. He's like ek is 'n man before ek is gay.
Oh wow, okay.
I'm like, yeah.
Dude,
I'm like,
what sounds fascinating. I don't know if I've got the stomach. Like,
I can't go past the first episode.
With Mogodu and with sex in Afrikaans, I don't know that I have the stomach for this. Genuinely. It's just the kind of meal that I maybe am not that curious about. And I'm a fairly curious human being about life and everything around me. I'm interested in the whole world and how things work. But it does strike me as particularly uninteresting to know what ugly people are doing when they bump their genitals together.
There's this awkward dude. I'm like, dude, like you're an Oom. I think I've seen you in my neighborhood once upon a time. And you're talking about I get 6 4 keer a year. I'm like, yeah, it's terrible. Wow.
So listen, these people, most of them appear with their faces on screen, on camera.
Yeah, like when they got to the round circle counseling thing with the sexologist, like they were all there, like taking like backgrounds, names, ages,
that
kids.
Interests me because I've always said South Africans are extremely, what's the word, shy about being on camera. We, for example, even with Dr. Hanan, which is on a Monday, we're talking about mental health issues, which they're pretty mainstream now. It's not embarrassing to admit that you have, depression or you've got some kind of personality disorder or whatever it is. It may be something that you're working through, but people aren't like humiliated and embarrassed to admit that stuff. But especially in these communities, for those ladies and gentlemen who are on this show and who've volunteered to be a part of this show, to just let it all hang out there and to talk about the stuff they've done. It's just incredible. I have to give credit to my friend Rian van Heerden, who is the producer. He knows what to do.
I don't know how you got those people to do what they do. But like, there's this one dude who can tell he's uncomfortable, but he's just there, and he's like, yeah, like I'm like, we have a very sexy health life. I'm like, yo, like, and also Gareth, like, oh yeah, this is my actual biggest takeaway. I think I wrote here. Afrikaans is an unattractive language.
Mm-hmm.
Like hearing all this in Afrikaans, it's like
I love the Afrikaans language, and I'm a big fan of Afrikaans. But my God, when people are talking like that with each other about sex and stuff, it's like objectively. Again, I know that there are probably Afrikaans people will say no, it's actually quite a sexy language. Maybe you think so, but objectively, compared to the French or
Xhosa
or Xhosa, or I find like Afrikaans. I don't know about Xhosa, frankly, because there's a lot of clicking and some seriously weird noise.
Gareth.
Yeah, but
Mi
still.
amor. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Maybe. But objectively, German and Afrikaans and Dutch, not as sexy as some of the other languages.
Yeah,
just
German sounds violent. Yeah, like I don't know if it's all like the Hitler propaganda like in my head, but like German sounds violent.
Tracy says Rian is fantastic. His take on Afrikaans culture is fascinating. He gets them to come out of their shells. That is a supreme talent. If you can get
That's
people
right there.
You can get people to come out of their shells, especially in communities where they are as conservative as the Afrikaans community is. That's just phenomenal. So well done to him. I got to watch, but I'm not going to enjoy it. I can tell you now, I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to be a very tough pill to swallow for me. So
I'll give it a try.
We've got to, right? We've got to understand our fellow man. We've got to understand the people in this country. And also, this is the kind of thing that we probably think it's just these people on the TV show. I'm telling you, there's some freaky people. I used to go to Sexpo, which was really interesting. And I used to go for 2 reasons. The first one was because, we did grow up in this this very conservative country. And I find it's like a rebellious thing. And also, I just think that when people are straight up and upfront and perfectly honest about sex, they tend to be better people. Just generally. That's the one reason. So you go because it's like, okay, wow, South Africa is growing up. The other reason I used to go is to to meet the people, to actually see what kind of people go to this. And you will be surprised. like it's old black couples and a big Afrikaans guy and his wife, and these are not young people who are like, ooh, sex is exciting, and these are like people who are genuinely curious about sex toys and weird fetishes, and they hang around, and those are the ones who go into the shops and buy this stuff
and buy that stuff.
They walk out with packets, man. That was always fascinating to me. So I think I got to watch this. Let's understand what kind of country we live in. And maybe someone now has to do a sex in the townships version. So we don't just have sex in Afrikaans. Now we get into some of those things, because we've also got people who pretend to be terribly socially conservative in black communities, and they're not conservative, man.
There's one rule in the township, Gareth. Don't be a chicken. Don't be a chicken. That's the one rule. Don't be there.
I'm not going to ask you to elaborate. That's all I'm going to say.
Please don't. Like, for your own safety, don't ask.
You can ask this, Lebang.
He doesn't want to talk about it.
I'm not interested. What I can share, if you guys can hear me, is like I used to work for this sex brand, a local like sex brand, and it really changed my idea about what sex is. Right? It showed me that, like, owning that side of yourself is it's a healthy experience. It shouldn't be this thing where we're not allowed to talk about sex toys and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I realized that the biggest target market, or the biggest market, was really older people that have realized that, look, dude, I've got desires and this is my body. I want to learn more about my body. I'm going to explore, and I shouldn't be ashamed to do that. It definitely is the older market. I think young people, there's still that thing of like, or whatever the case is, like,
they want to look cool. They want to seem like they're cool.
Yes, but it's the game is changing. Basically, the game is definitely changing, and there's a bigger market for just owning your sexuality. You don't come across as like, gross or like crass or like whatever. You just come across as a confident person who is okay with owning their sexuality, and you shouldn't even feel bad about it. You're luckier than most. A lot of people still don't know what they're doing. A lot.
Yep. It's a fine line. Hanging out with Jay says, there's an episode where they showcase the guy with the biggest dick in the Afrikaans community. He has to have sex with one of the porn stars, ended up not able to get it up. They actually showed the dick. Wow. Okay, you see, this is information.
So it's pornography.
Yeah, well, it's like we were saying, it's sensational, and then they disguise it by having a psychologist give them all group session.
Game of Thrones season 1 was pornography, and I don't hear anyone complaining about that.
No, exactly. All right, so South Korea has been trying to put an end to chronic overworking, because people work very hard in South Korea. We, by comparison, in this country, are the laziest people. The South Koreans wake up in the morning, go to work, and they come home when it's dark, and everything is about work. And now they've got a new president who's just won the election, and this president has appeared to push for even longer work hours. But suddenly, he has won the election and says, actually, we should limit the hours people can work to a maximum of 52 hours a week. And he says that's 40 hours a week plus 12 hours of overtime. He said we need more flexibility, because some workers, like game developers, may need to work longer hours during peak periods. But other jobs, he says 120 hours is plenty in a week. Now, I'm trying to work out what that means, because I know for a fact South Africa is not working that hard.
Don't we have like 40 hours? Like, so like this guy, because I've been following the Korean election, because it's been crazy. It's been crazy. Like, this guy also like campaigned like using like deep fake virtual AI stuff. Yes. So he could say stuff about his political opponent, but he's technically not saying it. So anything goes.
His name is Yoon Suk-yeol, right?
Yeah. So like this guy is like 120 hours. I'm like, dude, that's like 24 hours for 5 days straight. 24 hours for 5 days straight. Or like, I think it's something like 12 hours, like for the 7 days. It's something ridiculous. I'm like, when are people going to work? I mean, when are people going to sleep? And Korea already has that type of mentality where like they already overworked. And he also wants to remove the minimum wage. So he wants to remove the minimum wage. He wants them to work more for less. I'm like, this guy got elected just by saying these things. I'm like, guys, Korea's got something figured out.
Well, you see, again, just like we have problems that we're dealing with in this country, the South Koreans are dealing with too much work. So be grateful, because if Cyril told us to work harder, you know what we'd tell him, right? You know what we'd say to Cyril.
Where? Also, where? We'll work
When?
harder, but let's get the jobs, and then we'll work. Sure.
Yeah, you work hard, Cyril.
Yeah, you work hard. How about you start? You set the example. All right, South Africa is going to face record high petrol prices. I mentioned how I filled up the car over the weekend, almost had a heart attack. The government apparently will need to intervene in the coming weeks to soften the impact of a record high petrol price in South Africa, say economists. Love the way these economists go, oh, government can intervene. Anyway, speaking to the Sunday Times, Agri-SA economist Khulani Siweya called on government to suspend fuel levies to relieve pressure on food prices. You think they're going to do that? That's income for the government. They don't like to cut their levies. Are you joking?
Yeah, no.
Failure to act can only worsen the pricing pressure on consumers, compromising food security. He said, oh, that's okay. They don't care about that. The government don't care if you're hungry. They want their fuel levies. So good luck, economists, with getting government to drop the fuel levy. We'd all love that, but it's not going to happen. And just brace yourself, everybody. You're going to be very sore when you walk away from the petrol pump.
Yeah,
that is going, and that's not a sex and Afrikaans thing. That is a petrol price thing.
Jesus.
Also, government, they give with one hand and they take with the other. So they are going to give us something. They have reiterated that they have plans. They haven't exactly finalized these, to give free internet data to low-income South Africans as a part of growing telecommunications infrastructure drive. The proposal is included in the government's National Infrastructure Plan 2050, which was published by Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Patricia de Lille. Following the digital migration and spectrum auctions, the policy for rapid deployment of electronic communications and facilities will be finalized later in the year, they said. So more talking before they can do any of this. Must I get excited about this? Must I get excited? Bakh'abantu, I mean, are you excited about government giving you free data? How do we even know it's going to work?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to be like, you can get excited about the news, but also implementation. Government has been giving us free houses, free water, free electricity for the past 25 years. So has that worked? I don't think so. So I don't know. See it to believe it.
Exactly. You know what they'll probably do is they'll drop the petrol levy, but then they'll increase taxes and they'll say, look, but we've given you this. That's what they do. And then they'll say, but we did give free data. We gave you free data.
Yeah, then we can all complain on Twitter about it.
Well, Tracy rightly points out that the Road Accident Fund gets about R6.50 a litre. Seems a bit much. And they're still bankrupt. And they're still bankrupt.
I've looked into that. I've looked into why the petrol price is expensive, compared to the oil prices. And it's just for us, it's carbon tax, it's the RAF is most of it. And RAF is gives and then you watch I Blow It and you watch people blow 3 million and then just perfectly fine. And you're oh, that's my money though.
Mm. Also, I don't want free data from government. Whatever they give you for free, there's always a condition attached. They're probably going to give us free data, but then you have to get all your information from government SABC. Communication and information services or SABC. Yeah, you
have to download the SABC app. You have to pay your TV license or something like that. There's going to be a catch.
Poor Lebang is having some serious internet issues this morning, so hopefully we'll get those sorted out for her. But we've got something much more exciting that we've got to do this morning, and I'm thrilled to welcome him back to the show. He's always one of the things that we look forward to every single time he's on. Jean-Jacques Cornish, and I'm talking about Africanalysis, which, of course, is brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School, and we're looking at what is happening around the African continent. Good morning, Mr. JJ Cornish.
Bonjour to you. I hear you talking about the petrol price. I filled my car up the other day and realized that I have car owner virus. I mean, it's the worst illness I've had ever.
Car owner virus. That's a good one.
I do like that, JJ. By the way, you look like one of those magicians with your black shirt and your black background. You look like a floating head this morning.
How does it work?
Yeah. There we go. Look at you. So,
nothing
JJ,
up my sleeve.
Well, we've got to talk about a bunch of things. I mean, while we complain about the petrol price going up and international oil prices are under huge pressure, this is a big boon for the producers of oil in Africa, chiefly among them, obviously, our friends in Nigeria. They obviously are going to hit a bit of a windfall here, are they not?
They're going to make a lot of money. I mean, the world has actually turned on its head with this invasion. And we can remember it after the end of apartheid. I remember traveling around the world at the time and people saying, yes, okay, so you've got this rainbow nation and this peaceful transition, but what are you doing about economic growth? And I thought, well, that's true. What are we doing about economic growth? The fact is we had too long a honeymoon after our transition and didn't worry about economic growth. The rest of the world was doing that. Suddenly now economic growth takes second place to security. And we're going to have to learn to face the fact that petrol price, we're going to live with inflation. That's very sad. So that's going to drive many Africans back into poverty. But it's the petrol price that's going to go up and it's going to stay up. And that's going to bring trillions of dollars to countries like Nigeria, Libya, Angola, Algeria, Egypt. They're all going to have a big boon. Now, I'm working on these countries, particularly Angola, Nigeria, and how the slump in the oil price absolutely decimated their economy. So what are they going to do when that money comes back? Are they going to use it properly? Are they going to let it trickle down to the people? They have no record of doing this, neither in Angola nor in Nigeria. So much depends on how they manage this wealth boom that's going to happen for them.
Well, we know what's going to happen is that there are oligarchs, and we should just call them oilgarchs for the purposes of this conversation, because we know that this would happen before. You're quite right. It never seems to trickle down. The people of Angola, the average person in Angola, their life hasn't improved terribly much when the oil price has gone up. And the same goes for Nigeria. There are still huge political and divisional instabilities that are going on in those countries. And we know, for example, that in Nigeria, there are some very dangerous people in the oil industry, and it is a dangerous business to be in. It's probably not going to trickle down there, and it probably will just end up being another day in Nigeria and Angola for the average person, or am I being very cynical?
Not at all. I'm looking particularly at a small country like Gabon, 2 million people with oil. So, had one of the highest GDP per capita income ratings in Africa. But they overusing their drawing on their supply. They have enough petrol to last them for 261 years. But they export 98% of that. And so, but where does that money go to? Into the hands of Ali Bongo. Went into the hands of Omar Bongo, his father before him, 42 years as president. Now, again, this oil boom is really going to help Gabon. 2 million people, as I said, but about 4/5 of them live in abject poverty. So this is the same sort of thing in Equatorial Guinea, another oil-rich state, a smallish country, small population, but the majority live in abject poverty. So while the rich at the top get even richer, the poor get poorer. And unless that changes, we're just going to see no change for Africa. And that's the saddest thing.
And of course, here in South Africa, we sometimes cut off our nose to spite our face. I know that a lot of people were very opposed to Shell drilling off the Transkei coast not so long ago. And perhaps we would have discovered oil, perhaps we wouldn't have. People were very worried about the ecological and environmental ramifications of that. But it might have been nice to have some oil. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to look for a fight with anyone. But if we want to capitalize, and perhaps this is something that the government might have seen as an opportunity too, is the ability for a country to be energy independent is going to be a huge factor going forward. In fact, JJ, isn't this the basis, if we can just cast our eyes towards the source of our problems in Europe and the Ukraine here? Isn't the biggest problem for Europe at the moment that they're not energy independent of Russia? That's why Russia can hold them by the short and curlies, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. If we had, for example, found oil or gas, and we keep looking for it off Mossel Bay, but now we're scared of the way to do it. And I mean, this whole issue of fracking, well, I'm certainly not for fracking, but, we've got to find it. And, the way the machinations of the oil industry, oil price industries worked is that suddenly, because of the political ramifications, Russia suddenly became the largest producer oil producer in the world, and that has given it a power that a man like Putin is able to misuse mightily. But the fact is, a country like Germany, smart, savvy, heart of Europe stuff, virtually completely reliant on Russia for gas. And that has been so unhealthy. So they've got to break that, and they will try to get more gas from Algeria, from Angola, from Egypt. That might be a good thing to break that dependency. But again, here, if in South Africa we did have it, that would cement our role as the largest economy. Suddenly, Nigeria, which claims to be the largest, might be able to make a more realistic claim when the new petrol price goes up, or as the petrol price goes up.
So, JJ, you mentioned Algeria there, and Ramadan is approaching. Algeria has banned the export of foodstuffs. Again, a security question. National security isn't just about weapons and wars and guns and troops on the ground and safe borders and all that kind of thing. Security has to do also with making sure that people have enough to eat.
Indeed. I was in Algeria for Ramadan once. You've never seen them. They take it so seriously. You can eat, they told me. You can eat. And I said, yeah, it sounds like a clever plan to me. Sit in the middle of the town square, one Western pale-looking dude eating while the bad-tempered, fasting Algerians walk around me. I said, no, thanks. I will keep karem. They use that word karem, which is, of course, it's a Christian word for Lent, but the Algerians use. I will keep karem with the rest of you. I got back to my hotel one night. The table was groaning with food. I thought, better just pop up quickly and wash my hands, which I did. And when I descended, some minutes later, those tables were empty.
So taking it very seriously there.
The sun had gone down, or it was official sunset, and the Algerians descended upon that grub and consumed it at a speed that I just couldn't match. So I went hungry another night. But here we have Abdelmajid Tebboune. He's banned the export of sugar, oil, pasta, semolina, wheat, and he's also asked for a prolongation of the ban on the importation of frozen meat. Now, when Ramadan comes, they go through 54,000 tons of meat. So he's basically worried about the rise in the food prices and of shortages that might be caused by the invasion of Ukraine. And again, with Ramadan coming, I mean, as I say, they don't fool around when they have, they break their fast at the end of the day, they break it with abandon. And of course, they do start eating early morning. I remember waking up with a noise at about 3 in the morning, and it was the room service taking food to every room before the sun could possibly come up. And so that's how they manage. Every single interview I did with every government minister, the guy wanted to bite my head off. They become very bad tempered during the day. So I imagine that Tebboun's making this announcement before Ramadan, before this can happen, is opportune for him, because you cannot do anything unpopular during those days of fasting. You'd be eaten alive, I think.
That's very interesting, and something you'd have to be in the country to actually experience and know about. So what about what's going on in Kenya? I heard that Uhuru Kenyatta there was a crackdown on motorcycle taxis, right? So like we have taxis in South Africa, we also have Ubers, and we also have many other means that people have to use for transport. But in Kenya, it's popular to have motorcycle taxis.
They are called boda boda, and that comes, in fact, from Uganda. Now, the border between Uganda and Kenya, at Busia, there's a distance between the two border gates, the sort of no man's land, of about 1 kilometer. And these motorcycle taxis began ferrying people between them, saying boda boda, in other words, from border to border. And they were carrying, this started, 20 years ago. Now, there are about 250,000 of these boda bodas in Kenya, and about the same number in just the capital, Kampala, in Uganda. And the boda bodas, if you want to get anywhere, because the traffic in both these cities is absolutely parlous, will take you forever to cross Nairobi. you have to go on the back of a boda boda. If you want to get food delivered, you need a boda boda. If you need, you want to get small parts for the cars or anything like that delivered, you have to have a boda boda, because these the vehicles just can't get things around far. The supply chain breaks down. Now, what has happened? There was a horrific piece of video footage of boda boda riders stripping a woman naked in the streets, and Uhuru Kenyatta cracked down on that. But Uhuru Kenyatta, he's stepping down. Of course, his 2-term limit is over, but they face elections in August. So to do something like break the supply chain, as he's done with the boda bodas, is not at all advised or advisory during the election campaign. So he's now reinstated them or put a guard on it and said, we will investigate this. I imagine that the boda bodas create the same kind of static in Kenyan society as taxis, as the mini taxis do, or mini bus taxis do in South Africa. I remember as the radio host, if the show got quiet, I would either say, so what do you think Robert Mugabe is up to? Or how about those taxi drivers? I had one do this to me today. And of course, the lights in the studio would flicker on like a Christmas tree. People do nothing but talk about it. And I think that's the same in Uganda and in Kenya. But to actually try and stop them getting into the cities, which lasted for only 5 days, was something that Uhuru Kenyatta found too politically taxing.
That's very good. I'm obviously interested also in your thoughts on this, which came up, JJ. We were talking earlier. Lebang found this thing about national meals per country in Africa, and I don't know if you can see all the detail in this, but I was interested in you having traveled Africa and been in so many countries on this continent. Where's the best and where's the worst meal you've had on the continent of Africa, JJ?
Well, I mean, the worst meal I would probably have to say would be in South Africa, because I've eaten more here than anywhere else. So the law of averages makes it the worst. I have to tell you the truth, though. I've been vegetarian for more than 50 years. So I'm the bad judge of good meals and bad meals. I think some of the finest food I've had is in Egypt. I love Mediterranean food. Some great meals in Algeria. And some pretty good meals in Tunisia. So but that's my style of food. As
all in the north, everything
all
in the
up
north
there. I can't say that I've had great meals in East or Central Africa, particularly in the Congo. I get by, but a lot of the time, while many people try to smuggle cocaine and hash and stuff in through borders, I tend to smuggle cashew nuts and almonds and pecan nuts and hope that I don't get caught, because otherwise and energy bars, otherwise I simply couldn't survive.
Well, it's always good to get your input on these things. You are extremely well traveled on the continent, and you know the ins and outs. And thank you for telling us about boda bodas. Somebody says here, yeah, I remember that on my 2 visits to Kenya. That's Patrick. So lots of things making Patrick all nostalgic here. Thank you so much, JJ. Always good to see you. We will catch up with you again in a couple of weeks' time. JJ Cornish and Africanalysis on cliffcentral.com.
Looking forward
Thanks,
to it.
JJ.
Very good. And Lebang and Bakh'abantu and I are ready to take you through another hour of this morning, including a little bit of This Is Us. We'll also be joined by someone who I haven't seen in a long, long time, but who is an award-winning news journalist. But he's actually here to talk to us about something completely different. He's a really talented human being. I didn't know that this is another thing that he was doing. His name is Alex Eliseev. And apart from being a well-known name to anyone who's been listening to radio and been involved in kind of what the news is, this guy's he's done all of that, been there, done that. Now he's also decided that he's going to write a book with his 8-year-old son, which he's already done, and it is a comic, and it's called The Amazing Space Adventures of Captain Fluffbeard and Happy Worm. Yep, wow. That's what he's doing now. See, from news to that, and guess which one makes him more happy? We'll find out in a short while. Alex Eliseev joining us just now. cliffcentral.com. It is 7 o'clock. Hope your day is off to a good start. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Yo. I put it like wow. This that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me. I hope they know by now.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's right, cliffcentral.com on a Tuesday morning. It is the 15th, the Ides of March today. If you're Julius Caesar, today's not a good day. Otherwise, it's fine. We don't have to worry about that. If you're not in ancient Rome, in about the year, what was it, 40-something? Or was it somewhere around there? Anyway, it's better to be around now. That's all I can say. And not have daggers in your back with all your friends ganging up on you in the Senate. All right, so Lebang is with us, Bakh'abantu is with us, and we are going to be joined in a moment by Alex Eliseev. You can find him on Twitter or on any other social media platform, Alex, Alexeliseev, and the name is well known to many people in South Africa. Of course, an award-winning journalist. He's reported from hotspots all around the world. You may remember him from his coverage of the Oscar Pistorius trial and his book Cold Case Confession, which was about the Betty Ketani murder mystery. So he is also joining us this morning to talk about something completely different. He lives in London now. Hey, Alex, nice to see you. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. A very good morning to you.
Morning to you. So listen, you recently did something completely different. This is not Cold Case Confession. This is a book that you wrote with your 8-year-old son, which I think is so cool. I'm going to show everybody the cover quickly. And I'll tell you why we're talking to Alex about this in a second, because it's all very, very much to do with the Ukraine in terms of money that they're actually raising. And they're sending it to the Ukraine. But it's the amazing space adventures of Captain Fluffbeard and Happy Worm. Listen, dude, this is a far cry from news. What created this change?
Yeah, and just seeing and hearing you and hearing JJ there, it's like a wonderful, wonderful trip back to what I was doing earlier. But this is, you're quite right, it's very, very different. And quite honestly, it was just a way to channel some of the feelings that I was having about what was going on in Ukraine, and I would drop my son off at school, and would be chatting to a mom whose son is with him in class, and she's from Ukraine, and we'd been talking. I'd been helping them along the way when they were trying to translate into English after arriving in London, and we had built up a friendship. And suddenly I was standing in the courtyard of the school as these 2 8-year-old boys were playing, speaking to a mother whose 19-year-old cousins were on the front line, whose family was in Western Ukraine. And something inside me just gripped so tight, and I thought, I have to do something. I can't just not do anything.
Now just back it up a little bit, because you are Russian.
Yes, indeed. And so Russian born, and I was standing there with this Ukrainian woman. We were talking about our sons, and suddenly there was this completely new dynamic, and something inside me wanted to just, I don't know, hug her and say sorry for what was going on, but she didn't want that. She just kind of looked at me and said, I know it's not you. If you can do anything, just tell the world that the truth, don't let the world buy into any of that propaganda that was going around. And I could almost, I don't know, I kind of looked at her and I felt that emotion, and I thought, I have to do something. And yes, I can like something or tweet something or, do something that I've always done in the past, or we can do something completely different. And I'd been drawing comics, since I was my son's age. And we quite often sit down and doodle, and he's got this entire world of imagination that comes through in his own comics. And so slowly, these characters had begun to come to life. And, we would create Captain Fluffbeard while walking in the neighborhood and seeing a cat that had been chasing us down the street, or Happy Worm came to be because of a character my dad invented when I was a kid, who used to live inside a sock. And every time he wanted me to get my socks on, he would pretend there was this little creature inside the sock, and he would search for him and scramble around. And just before he'd got him, he'd go, oh, he got away. We'll catch him next time, but please put your socks on. And so I kind of got into the idea of that kind of storytelling. And then my son and I just sat down and we started to create this little comic book. And, oh, sorry, yeah.
No, I just want to go to the start of the story, because I mean, all of this about the book is magnificent, and I'm so happy that you and your son are involved in a project together, something which I think a lot of fathers wish they could do with their children. And it's so nice that you can do something for kids as well, because this is obviously, there's no upper limit on the amount of great children's literature we can see out there. And if you are talented enough to be able to draw as you can, and to be able to come up with stories as you and your son have, that's a magnificent thing to do. And anyone who's got that creative impulse should cherish it. But I do want to know, because you are a journalist and you are someone who understands these stories. You mentioned how you're you feel awkward because of the way Russia's behaving in the world right now. What do you make of what's going on there, and what's your analysis? Because people are going to ask you, and I may as well ask you, as a Russian, what do you feel when you see Vladimir Putin on the world stage now? You see these horrible stories coming out of the Ukraine, and the kind of targets that they've occasionally had, civilian targets. You see all these refugees flooding into Poland. What do you make of all of this, Alex?
I mean, it's difficult because I left Russia when I was about 8 years old, so I don't have my own impressions of it. But to say that when I started school there, for example, you would still be wearing the Star of Lenin, and so there was still the kind of the fragments of the old world. But I lived that through my parents. They pulled us out of the Soviet Union back in the early 90s, and they had a really difficult immigration to bring my sister and I to a place like South Africa, where we then grew up and spent the rest of our lives. And I think only now it's dawning on me why they did that, because clearly they had seen the old world and what that was like, and they didn't want us to be part of that. They wanted us to come to a free world, to somewhere different. And you ask me what I feel, and I think Russians are really good at melancholy, and so that's why I guess we write really long books that survive through the ages. But yes, I mean, it is a really emotional thing. And I feel really, I went through phases almost of extreme depression, extreme anger. I looked back, I mean, I'd worked in Libya, for example, writing around there. I'd done the xenophobic violence in South Africa. I knew what that violence was like firsthand. And I wanted to express it somehow. And at the same time, I wanted to find a way to speak to my son about it. Because over the past 2 years, we've had to have conversations with very little people about very serious things like the coronavirus. How do you explain to a kid that there's this pandemic sweeping the world and your parents might die, your grandparents might die? How do you have those very difficult conversations? Then how do you explain to an 8-year-old how senseless and awful and terrible war is without showing them those images that we have seen on the New York Times, for example, etc.? So how do we open up those doors to those conversations? How do we bring them up to understand that war is really when humans run out of all ideas? And why do we keep looping through history in this violence, this terrible, terrible violence? And so I was looking, I think, for ways to express all of that. And this is how it came out. And the comic touches on that. It shows it in some ways. It shows it and it opens up that conversation. And then parents, I think, can have their own conversations with their children about it.
So you are sending all the proceeds from the sale of this book to the Ukraine. And obviously that is complicated to do because there are so many people in need right now in the Ukraine. Have you got people that you are in contact with over there?
So simply put, we don't see anything that gets made from that comic book. It goes directly to the United Nations Refugee Agency. So the way that we did it is we didn't want to take people's money and then have to pass it on to somebody else. We're just channeling it straight through to the UN. And in fact, we got an email from them yesterday, and there was a lady there from the Refugee Agency, and she just said, "Thank you, Captain Fluffbeard and Happy Worm really brightened up my Monday." And I thought, if we are managing to brighten up your Monday, well, thank goodness. And once again, it's because, with the work that I've done, I've seen the kind of efforts that are underway on the ground with the refugee agencies and what they do. And, if we can send 10 Rand there, if we can send £1 there, that's worth it for me. And in some way, then, you're doing a little bit of good. So all of that just goes straight through. There's a page on Just Giving that just channels the money straight through to where it needs to go.
All right, so we can obviously get the information if we follow you on Twitter, right? You'll be updating us there with all of the stuff that we need, and it's probably the easiest way to get hold of you and to also get a copy of the book.
Absolutely, but by far the easiest way is just to go to edesivemedia.com. There's a little page there under comic, and there's buttons to read the comic. It's free. You don't have to pay for it, but if you do want to support us, please do. We're doing our little bit, and if you can support us, that would be amazing.
How did the actual creative process work with you and your son? Did you guys sit at a table together and do this in a conventional way? Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. I mean, it began with pencil and paper, and we drew it. And the way that it worked is, so the characters came to life in our minds, and my son had been drawing them for a while. Then I kind of sharpened them up. I introduced Captain Happy Worm into it, and we started drawing. And I would draw something, he'd be sitting next to me, and then he'd go, "But those eyes are not right, or they need to be squiggles, or they need to be swirls, or we need to make them look like that." And so we would rub it out, and he'd say, "Well, now I want to draw the little teddy in there," and then he'd get stuck in and draw it together. So it sounds
like he was in charge, Alex.
Of course he was. I mean, of course he was.
What's your son's name?
Nikolai.
Okay, very good. That's a nice Russian name. There we go.
Yeah.
On the money.
So yeah, I mean, my sister and I were both named after the Romanov family, so I just carried on that tradition. And
that couldn't have been popular during the
No, it wasn't. But the names are lovely, and so yeah, it was a really creative process. And then we went over it again. My sister, actually, who's in the media too, helped us. She's coloring in the comic, so it was a really kind of a real family effort. And my wife then helped to market it because she's in the marketing world. So it was a truly kind of family affair, but ultimately,
what a nice reason to talk to you, and instead of the things that we always used to talk about, which were always political and always about war and always about complicated murders. And are you missing South Africa?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. And I just, every time I speak to anybody in South Africa, there's just this wonderful feeling of being connected to the place. And but I've also been on a really big adventure for the last couple of years, and London has its amazing history and all the interesting things that are keeping us interested there. But, I watch it keenly. My family's still in South Africa. I visit. So it's really wonderful. And when I hear, your voices and JJ and all of that, it definitely does make one homesick.
It's very good to see you again, Alex, and keep up the good work in children's literature, man. What a cool thing to be doing as a side business. What an interesting thing when you've been a journalist to be doing this kind of thing, which is just a whole different world.
And who knows? Maybe this is just the first one. Maybe there'll be book 2, book 3. Who knows?
And a movie, a sitcom.
You never know. Yeah.
Take it to the top. Take it to the top.
Building a little empire here. Nice to see you, Alex, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you.
Very good. That's Alex Eliseev, and you can find him on Alex Eliseev on Twitter, and you can also go to Edesive Media, and then you will be able to see where the book is and get yourself a copy of that. All the proceeds going to refugees coming out of the Ukraine, and a good cause. I mean, something that everybody's trying to, people are putting like their little Ukrainian flags on your profile and so on, but here's a guy who's actually sending some money there, which is, I think, a little more useful. So that's at elisivemedia.com, ELISEEV media.com/comic, and you can donate there as well if you can. It's
very cute. I just skimmed through the book while we're chatting to him. Like, you can literally see that this is an 8-year-old's hand on paper. Like, they didn't even try make it like professional. It's just like it's from the heart, and that's just so great.
But he's got a great story. Like, it's not like people like virtue signaling on Twitter. He's actually doing the work. He's actually like.
Awesome.
Like, it's not his fault. He's Russian, but he feels bad and he's doing something. And it's such a great story for someone who comes from a background of journalism and all that dark stuff to like still blossom something like that can bring happiness to the world in a dark time.
Yeah, right. No, it's very, very cool.
Sweet.
And nice to see him again. Sanela says, Alex is the most unintimidating Russian I've ever seen. Well, he's not afraid. You should have seen him in the field. The guy he didn't mind what was going on around him. He was by all means a brave journalist, and now he's doing this, which is a different kind of bravery. So there we go. Ethan says everyone helps in their own way. Very, very good.
Yeah.
A lot of people still, talking about whether or not, this Ukraine situation has an end game. That's what I'm most interested in, is what is going to happen. What is for Putin the best possible outcome, and what is the best outcome for the Ukraine, and not to mention the rest of the world, who are also getting stuck into this story as if it's theirs. I would be interested to know if you have any thoughts on that, because I don't see this coming apart gently. I don't see it ending, in a smooth, sensible way. I see things are just, it's not in Vladimir Putin's interest to end this gently. I think he wants it to carry on for as long as possible. And the longer it carries on, probably the better for him. Anyway, so Lebang, you had some story about South African artists who are actually taking legal action against people who are stealing their intellectual property.
Oh, yeah. There's like a trend lately, which I guess you started many, many, many years ago, about like taking the law seriously, where now more and more like artists are really going to court and fighting for these things. I don't know if you know about a show called The Bri Show, which was AKA's brainchild, where he basically just bries and like has conversations with like fellow celebrities and artists or whatever. And it was his idea, and it was on a TV channel for a couple of months, I guess, for a full season. And then like out of the purple for season 2, it's a whole new host, and not just any host, like his rival Casper Nyovest is
of
The Bri Show. So while this was happening, dude, how uncool. So while all of this was happening, Casper was like, it's just business, it's not personal, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, yesterday, AKA released a statement saying that he actually owns the rights to anything related to The Bri Show, and he's the 50% like owner of everything. So whoever has worked on The Bri Show or is continuing to work on The Bri Show, he owns 50% of it. And I was just like, okay, this is cool. It's actually artists standing up for their IP, and it's shitty that it's against another artist. I mean, as creatives, we already know how difficult it is to fight for our ideas and to make them ours and to, take full ownership of them. Yeah. So to get your idea taken from another artist is just like, damn, it's lame. So I just like the fact that people are really fighting for their ideas now. It's encouraging.
Well, yeah, but it just seems to me people are so shameless about this stuff. Just taking other people's ideas, just taking other people's...
we are dealing with the SABC here. So like the Bride Show was on SABC One. Like it was a great show, but like I remember just watching it on SABC One. I'm like, why is this on? Like this does not fit the entire content here. But like it was a great show for that first season that I watched it. I heard about the Casper controversy, but then I never followed up until like I saw AKA actually suing people.
Yeah, people are getting sued.
If the fact is, just because you are suing someone doesn't mean you're going to win, but it's great to see that these people are taking seriously the things that they helped to develop. I mean, it's not the most original idea in the world, if you don't mind my saying, like trying with people and talking shit with them. I mean, I think there's been a million shows like that, but let's see if he can make it work and he can convince a judge that this is a special and spectacular idea. Great. Make some money, dude.
Yeah, no, it's just the idea of like, not just letting people do whatever they want. Like, as you said earlier, like, even with Bonang suing that other podcasting boy for like 500K, you can't go around just talking shit and just doing shit. There has to be consequences. And so I am just hoping that with more and more artists and more, I guess, celebrities, just like standing up and saying, hey, actually, it'll be an example for the rest of the people just to like, relax. Don't be out here.
Respect also. Respect.
Let's go. I mean, also, just don't steal people's stuff. How about that? That would be nice.
Respect.
Start off there, come up with your own stuff. You're so creative and clever. Go on.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people commenting on the Russia situation. I mean, here's Marty, who says it's only in the US's interest to prolong this conflict. Putin's aim is simple: demilitarize and denazify. Ukraine must be neutral. Ukraine is the US laundering paradise. Look, Marty, I mean, it seems like that's a very one-sided account, but it's a side that we don't hear a lot. So I'm pleased to have your point of view along with all the others. Putin may be one of those new world order puppets, and the war was planned to continue the tyrant's agenda because people wake up about corona pandemic and it's a diversion. Another kind of out there point of view. I'm not sure I agree, but there we go. I'm happy to have all the opinions. The USA are in for a fight. Pearl Harbor coming up, says Robin. I don't know. Pearl Harbor? I do not see the correlation at all here. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean, Robin. Be a little more specific.
Like, isn't she referring to like when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor? So like maybe Russia's attacking the US?
No, if Russia attacked the US, I don't see how Pearl Harbor is a good correlation for any of that. And we're way past the point where you need to take out the Pacific Fleet. This is not 1942. I just saying. Anyway,
you just touched Gareth's history nerd bone. Like you just jabbed it.
Gareth and history.
He was like, no, I don't see the correlation.
Unbelievable. Anyway, I did listen to a very interesting podcast yesterday. A guy called Majid Nawaz, who I've had on the TV show before, and Majid is basically he's on a mission to decentralize our thinking and to decentralize the way that the world works. He feels like that the biggest threat to human freedom going forward is the centralization of power. And he reckons that the most powerful centralizing force in the world today is the Chinese Communist Party. And he reckons that is where he's going to focus his energies. And whether you agree with him or not, it's an interesting idea to think about the fact that half the world, or maybe even more than half the world, is all about decentralizing, kind of getting away from a centralized authority, and that the rest of the world is going in the exact opposite direction, where it's all about control. So I would be interested to know whether you've listened to that at all, what you think of Majid Nawaz. Very interesting person. He obviously grew up as a Muslim in Britain, joined an Islamist organization. They were essentially terrorists. He was declared a terrorist. He was actually locked up for 4 years in jail in Cairo, and then had an epiphany while in prison and read and spoke to lots of people and became kind of one of the more thoughtful people in the world, especially in the Western world, trying to explain what's really going on in parts of the world where maybe people aren't paying as much attention, like in the Middle East. So a guy worth paying attention to. That's Majid Nawaz. So we'll see if we can't get him on this show at some point and talk to him. Anyway,
Sounds
But like Gareth, like
Yeah.
just like on a cap on this Ukraine thing, like the end game of Putin from my point of view, like especially when you see him like with grandstanding with his like long tables and his advisories, I want to reckon he's probably gone a bit insane, like power hungry. I think he just wants to go down in history as the biggest villain. Like he wants to be another Adolf Hitler. Like he just wants to be.
Let me ask
he just
you,
wa-
in all seriousness, who wants to be an Adolf Hitler?
I think he genuinely
don't-
thinks
I
that's
think
his
that's probably one
lasting
of the-
legacy.
I don't think anyone wants to go down in history as a loser who brought the world to its knees and killed millions of people. I don't think anyone wants that, Bakh'abantu. I mean, if he does, then he is insane. But he's displayed no behavior that gives me any impression that he's insane. In fact, he's probably, out of all the world leaders right now, it's scary how not insane he is. Like how he's totally not motivated by feelings. The guy is a cold, logical machine.
Dude,
And I don't
that's
know.
crazy.
These people who say he's gone insane, like you, for example, I just don't see it. You've got to explain to me where you get the insane part.
Dude, I just thought the isolation and the whatnot, but like if you think that's just like him calculating, keeping the world at a distance. I don't know. I'm just trying to find his motivations, and I don't see what his end game is.
I think he's a huge opportunist, and I think that he thought that this thing would be a lot easier than it's turned out to be. But I do feel at the same time that we are looking at a situation where he saw a chance to take something that he wanted. He may have all kinds of bold dreams and ambitions, and I still think that ultimately you are not wrong about the fact that he's probably thinking about his legacy. You know, he's been president, he's been prime minister, he's been in the background running Russia for years now, almost as long as South Africa's been a democracy. And for someone like that, it's all about how they'll be written into history. There you're absolutely right. But I don't think he doesn't see, villains never see themselves as the villain.
As the villain, yeah.
So I think what's going to happen there is that he's now he's going to force the West to either stand up for the Ukraine, or he's going to extend his sphere of influence, and he's going to make Russia bigger and better and meaner from his point of view. And I don't think that that's going to go well for Ukraine. I mean, the Western world has shown that because we could consider ourselves to have been in the Western sphere of influence, at least as much as being in, the non-aligned movement or a part of free liberal democracies. Let's put it that way. What I'm curious about is that the Western world is not jumping to do anything. We'll do some sanctions, we'll do this, but we're not going to get too involved. It's like, which animal's more involved in breakfast? The chicken, because it lays the egg, it's involved, or the pig, because it gets cooked. That's more than involved. That's committed. We're not committed in the Western world. We're involved.
Yeah,
that's what
we're just sort of watching, which is unusual because usually the Western world is always like first at the party. Like, we'll make decisions. And I was just like, hey, we'll let y'all finish.
And another part of this is that the United States, the empire of the United States, this hegemonic power that's been such a looming presence in the world for at least the last 5 or 6 decades, is starting to lose its shine. That's something that I think everybody's starting to see.
Yeah, like I think that's like to your point, Gareth. Like, yeah, like he saw an opportunity, he's taking it, and he's taking it like because the US is sleeping currently. Yeah. Or like maybe the US was never a giant.
Joe Biden's definitely sleeping.
Sleepy Biden.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to what we want to finish up with today. And thanks, Bakh'abantu. We will catch up with you on Thursday. It is time for This Is Us, and we've got Lebang Hosanna, we've got Yatish Nasi, you got me, and we're going to be talking a little bit this morning about what This Is Us has been about for the last few episodes. Hey, Yatish, how are you?
Hey.
Good. Yourself? How's it, guys?
Good, man.
Good.
Excellent. So today we're going to kind of do a little recap and a farewell to This Is Us, at least for the next while. It's obviously something which started. Yatish, you can just reset the whole thing for us where it comes from, because we had those riots in July last year, and it made everybody sit up and take notice, and we had to very seriously consider what it was that made South Africa South Africa. And you decided, along with a whole lot of other people, that we could make an impact. We could do something about this. We could lead South Africans in having difficult conversations. Tell us about how it began in your mind.
Yeah, so I suppose it did. To your point, it began around was July last year, and it was a bunch of us, a few of our clients, a few sort of various guys around the business that sort of sat down and went, geez, what could we do in our little capacity? And I guess the thing that we understood well as sort of being in the marketing world was to say, look, we see a lot of commentary on social media. We saw a lot. I think the thing that really swung me, actually, if I think about it, was some of the shit going around on WhatsApp. There were some messages flying in and out of groups, and I looked at it and thought, like, okay, there are not enough good conversations about this. We're not actually, there's a lot of opinions, but we're not potentially talking about things the right way. And we've had this discussion on the show as well, that these days kind of the sort of social media behavior has influenced that, right? People just chuck comments at things and don't really have good conversations. So we really wanted to think about a place where we could reflect on who we were, who are we, what makes us who we are, and let's have these conversations. So that's kind of where it started, and we looked at a bunch of different ways we could do it. We looked at various initiatives we could get involved in. You guys reached out to us, we reached out to you. We had a conversation around the value of sort of podcasting as a platform to also have these conversations. And we've chipped away for the last, it's almost a year now, hey, at just trying to talk to South Africans who still give us hope. It's been a year of very good conversations. I've certainly been more humbled and learnt a lot more than I thought of when I joined the journey. Yeah.
And for you, Lebang?
Oh man, it's been quite the roller coaster. I won't lie to you. Like for me, This Is Us was like obviously like my gateway into Cliff Central #1. So to a certain extent, it was like my baby because I believed so much in it. So in as much as like it was like Tisha's brainchild, the minute I got involved, I was like, oh my word, this is right up my alley. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is I feel like we just took it back to basics, which is really storytelling, which is having those conversations that are important. Whereas, back in the day, these are the kind of things that people would be speaking about around a fire, or you'd be hearing these kinds of stories from like our grandparents, and it would be passed down. Now it's like we're using this platform to create such a positive impact and to really take out that negative fluff and remove all the nonsense that we're constantly just being fed and saying, hey, these are some good people that are doing really great things that we think you should hear about. And we're introducing these people into to the audience. So I think it's just, we've put a spotlight on something so dope. We've offered solutions to people. I know that like the average South African was like, I want to get involved, but I don't know how. And every single week we literally say, yo, cool person, how do we get involved? And everybody has a different answer. But out of all those answers, we can at least take a little bit and say, I can do that. I can get involved in this. So my favorite thing is really just like seeing how we've really taken everybody's little bit that they're doing to make South Africa great and exposing that to the audience and seeing how the audience is ultimately using that information and making a little change in their little world. It's been top tier.
Well, I mean, we've had some really great guests on here, and that for me has been a major highlight. I've loved hearing from people like Songezo Zibi and Bonang Mohale. These are some of the most, thoughtful people in South Africa. They're the people who are at the coalface, really, of defining what kind of business environment, in the case of Bonang, and what sort of NGO environment, in the case of Songezo, who obviously also used to be a journalist and after that was in the corporate world for a very long time in communications. Did either of you ever have a guest say something that you thought, oh my God, wow, that's incredible. That's so insightful. That's precisely what I needed to hear. Because it happened to me a few times.
Yeah,
well,
it did. Yeah, Lebang, you can go.
Sorry, Gareth, I'm going to take your question and just spin it on its head. I specifically remember hearing a comment from Muzi Kuzwayo, I think it was end of last year, where he said something and I was like, what? How dare you? I was actually a little bit offended, but at the same time, I understood. I mean, it's Muzi Kuzwayo. He's just that kind of person. I remember sort of like complaining to him and like saying that I'm worried about like the older generation and how our grands are still voting for ANC, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, those people are about to die. Let them go and focus on the younger generation. And that kind of took me aback because, you know, I can't just be like, okay, Granny, peace out. But I completely understood what he was saying. And it was, you know, kind of conversations like that where I was like, this person is so right. If I take that energy and just shift it into the younger generation and, you know, just being able to get that kind of shock factor from Muzi was just wild. So that was one that really stood out for me.
And for you, Yetish?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's so many. If I just think about the little moments, but probably like if I connect all of them, the biggest learning for me out of this, and again, you know, going into it, the assumption I made, and I think a lot of people who had also been a part of this had made, was we were trying to grow as big a base as we could. And sort of Mike Abel specifically kind of spoke to it a little around going, you know, we're measuring the wrong thing. And there's no point having a very popular platform where there are a lot of comments, but people aren't doing anything. And, you know, the thing I've learned out of this is you actually don't need a passive majority. You need like a really active minority if you're going to turn things around. And I think in their own way, everybody we had on reflected that to us. You know, you keep looking for these like a silver bullet, and what we've noticed is there's people in education making a difference. There's people with, you know, rehabilitating fathers making a difference. There's people like Songezo trying to just bring public, private, and communities together. There's, you know, there's so many little efforts in so many different spheres that you start to realize, you know, we don't need 1 million followers and 10 million likes. We just need like a group of really amazing people actually willing to get stuff done.
Yeah. Gareth, what stood out for you?
You know what? You've just reminded me of two that, well, certainly the Muzi Kuzwayo story. I mean, he's always fantastic. And every time I speak to Muzi, I get this idea that this is the kind of wise village elder that we all need.
Yeah.
I also thought that some of the most meaningful and the most poignant and the most powerful stuff came from people who are doing things on the ground. The people that you had on your show, Lebang. You know, there's that woman who's feeding a whole lot of kids that are not hers. And I think about people like that who wake up every morning. Most of us, I mean, we try to be good people, right? And I'm not talking about the people who try to be good people on social media. We all try to do a little bit for everyone around us. But we've all got real world motivations, real world problems to deal with, real world realities. And here are these people who wake up every day and they go and do things for others. And they are more motivated than any of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find that remarkable. I really do. It reminds you also, if we go back to July and the genesis of this whole thing, reminds you of those taxi drivers who were guarding the shopping malls. It reminds you of those communities who got together and stayed up and built these barricades to keep people out of, you know, quiet sort of suburbs because the children there needed to sleep. And you think about all of those kinds of things, and it's ordinary people who make and I say ordinary people without obviously being, you know, patronizing or pejorative here, because we're all ordinary people when you think about it. Those are the people who actually make the thing work. They're the people who move the wheels, who keep the machine going. And South Africa is full of those. That resilience was an ongoing golden thread throughout this conversation. And it's something that made me feel very good about being here.
Yeah, no, it really is unmatched. I actually want to share a story with you guys just to like show you how powerful like what we're doing is. So when we began in around August, you actually made reference, Gareth, to the lady that feeds like 300 kids in the neighborhood who aren't hers or whatever. So her and her daughter, obviously, like how they make their money is literally just like handouts every morning on Twitter. She's asking people, hey, today we're making this. If anyone can donate anything, 10 Rand, 50 Rand, whatever. So that's how they survive. They actually don't have any like proper funding. And a couple of months later, I think maybe two months ago, maybe last month, I interviewed the Angel Network on my show. And they've obviously been in the game for many more years, but the work that they do is more of like, they play like mommy and daddy type NGO to the other little NGO. So if you're an NGO that's in need and you're just starting out, you can go to the Angel Network for help. So they came onto my show, we spoke, we had a great time. They spoke about all the stuff that they do. After the show, they like to me, look, if you know anyone that could, need an angel and could need some help, please let us know, let's visit. So off the top of my head, I'm like, oh, there's this lady who cooks with her mom every morning. Here's her number. I kid you not. The Angel Network, I think, pledged like 2.5 every week to give to them, gazebos, food, like gas stoves. So they've now got like an ongoing like funding / assistance just from like, the conversation we had on my show. It was like, they needed a recommendation. I had somebody on the show earlier and, that girl called me in absolute tears. I kid you not. She was like, Lebang, I didn't know what we're going to do. Like, I didn't know what we're going to feed the kids. I didn't know how we're going to continue because the money was running dry. And now we never have to worry about that again. So like, I don't want us to ever think that what we're doing isn't touching the right lives. It's reaching the right people. It may be in a small way, but in that small way, there's 300 kids that are now guaranteed food for the rest of however long this goes on. And it's those little kinds of things where I know that we're doing this for the right reason. I know that, if we can, just reach a larger scale of people, it could touch even more lives. So that's just the kinds of things that are happening on the ground. And those are the real stories that, can go throughout all South Africans and I guess globally if we take it to the top. So This Is Us is where it's at.
Well, I mean, where are we going to go from here, guys? Because, people are asking, does this mean, here's Sean, are you guys shutting down? Let's do a mini recap. Yeah, that's kind of the idea for today. I mean, these things, obviously it takes a huge amount of effort, but it also takes money and it takes people working behind the scenes to make these discussions happen. And it is something which we feel has got legs and may carry on in some way, shape or form. But for the moment, this is the final episode of This Is Us on the show for a little bit. And we'll see. There may be ways to carry this on, right, Yatish? Right, Lebang?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's in a way, we've been sort of running since July last year. I think all of us sort of doing it as much as we can on the side of our daily pressures, and we've had some impact. Some of those stories, like Lebang's just mentioned, are like unbelievable. You just need one of those to keep you motivated. Mm. But like you said, there are a lot of moving parts. For me personally, it was an opportunity to say, like, let's pause for a little bit. Let's reflect on what's been done, and let's recalibrate about going, okay, what's worked, what's not worked. I mean, there are a lot of things that we've done that I thought, in hindsight, we could have done this differently, or we could have done. So we've learned so much in the last 8 months, and it's almost to go away, think about that, look at what's worked, restack it, and then go out again and say, okay, let's have a second push at this, and keep evolving it. So I think there are a lot of legs, but I think we've got to pause for a little bit, again, think about what we've done and think about where we go.
Yeah, there's a comment here from Ruth, and she's kind of going up against what Muzi said, but I think it's a valid point that she makes here too. The elder generation have tons of fabulous wisdom and life experience. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but we need to care for our society, especially the elderly, because often they have gone without so that the youth could have. Yeah, I mean, that's the obverse, obviously, to Muzi's controversial statement. And there are many old people who are making the biggest difference these days. And I say old in inverted commas because what's old these days? You could be a granny at like 40 something, and you can have more energy than someone who's 20. And we see that, especially in so many parts of South Africa where people are stretched, and there are granny-headed households, and there are grannies that hold the community together. We know from speaking to so many people during the course of This Is Us how many people are dependent on those older women in the society that hold the whole thing together. They are the glue.
Yeah, 100%. I was interviewing another organization last week. I think they're called Build South Africa or Rebuild South Africa. And they have like a project that they're running in Alex where like the older grannies and the older ladies are, as you're saying, the backbone of like all of the stuff that happens in Alex. They're the ones who plant the vegetables. Most of the food that we eat, over 80% of it has been like planted by older grannies and abogogo that we refer to. So this project that they're running in Alex is basically like refurbishing the river and, using the river to give life back into the township, whereas it's previously been used to sort of just like dump stuff there and blah, blah, blah. They are trying to bring it back to life and teach the youth about, keeping it clean, about planting their own foods and stuff like that. So it's a whole project that has this like nice long-term goal. But like generally, I think just to touch on the point of where to from here, like for me, my wish is that every single person listening can take like a little bit, even if it's just like a little 2% of what you've heard from the past year and just be moved by just that and make that choice in your personal life to say, okay, cool. What can I do? And as Yetish said, we don't need like this huge like Superman type effort where you get behind this huge organization and your whole company No, it's literally just you and your friends. It's you and your family. It's you and 2 other people coming together and saying, okay, cool guys, once a month, let's go and donate food. Or once a month, let's get together and blah, blah, blah. Let's pick up paper here. Let's just come together in your little corners and do the little bit that you can. That would ultimately be my hope for what This Is Us how it can continue, basically. With or without us, we are still This Is Us. You know what I'm saying?
Corona's Boring says here, the real answer to South Africa's social issues is to put everyone to work, for themselves preferably, to produce value, to stack on the country's cumulative whole. Yeah, we I think have covered during the course of this discussion, so much has been about unemployment and the fact that so many people wake up in the morning and they don't have anything to do that can earn them money. There are not enough jobs. There are not enough opportunities available to young South Africans in particular. We've got to figure that out. And that is something which takes a huge and monumental effort. And obviously government's part of that. Business is part of that. There are loads of organizations that are part of it, but down to the person, which is what Lebang is saying, we can all make a difference here. We can all start to improve our own conditions. Is there something in particular that you guys have decided to do, Lebang and Yetish, that you've decided to do that you've changed?
So for me personally, since I started engaging with these people that are like doing like on the ground work, I found myself really like checking in on like the long-term goal, because the funny thing is when you speak to these people every single week, you pick up the similar thread where they're moving from, I want to cook for the community and I want to give a fish, to I want to teach them how to fish. So my favorite thing has been seeing how the mindset is now what's taking priority. And instead of just, no, we are happy to give food parcels, a lot of them are saying, we want to donate books and we want to teach them how to read. So I've personally really gotten behind the teaching the kids how to read aspect of things, being a mom as well, and knowing how important it is for our kids to learn how to read. I've, pledged to also give some books, donating some of the old books that my kids have read in the past as well, and just getting more involved in that thing and trying to offer my services beyond like money. Like I'd love to give money, but if I don't have money, I've got time. If I've got like a free 1 or 2 hour in the afternoon, I have visited the soup kitchen that happens here in Bramley, and it's just amazing to see what these people are seeing. So it's just being present and it's just offering a little bit of myself. And I know that I wish I could do more and I want so much to do more, but in the little that I can do, I know that it's enough. And I know that it's helping them to also, stay encouraged and also just keep that long-term mentality of how are we actually helping? And the nicest thing is to see that, again, they're shifting from let's feed these people to let's give them a sense of purpose. Let's check their psychological, well-being. Let's really get into their minds versus let's just give them something for now. So I'm hoping to see more of them do that.
In your case, you're also raising little people who are going to be part of that society, Lebang, and that's probably 100%. The most important responsibility. You are too, Yetish. I mean, this is a country you want your kids to grow up in, and you want your kids to have an opportunity to have the best life in. And I think that's got to be, no matter who you are. And we often try to stereotype or simplify or make people that we don't know, or even the community at large, the South African population, we try to kind of make it an object that has certain qualities and characteristics. There isn't a parent I've ever met who just does not care about their kids and does not want to provide them with a future. There isn't one such person that I've ever met. And if you've met them, please, bring them on the show, because they're going to be a very standout bad person. When you talk to someone about the kind of world that they want their kids to grow up in, then these are the kinds of conversations that are easy for them to have. It's amazing how people switch the positive on when it's about their own families, when it's about their own kids, when it's about their own future. Then it's easy for them to be positive. And we have such a burden that we carry as South Africans because of our history and because the news is often so bad that we fall into the habit of complaining the whole time. And we complain about what's going on in the country. We complain about what's going on outside the country. We moan about coronavirus. We moan about the economy. We moan now about, how we don't have enough people in jobs or whatever else it is. But we also have these extraordinarily resilient people who, in their own lives, including the ones who complain, they get on with it. They wake up in the morning, they go to work, they make things happen, they try their best. They try to put food on the table at the end of the evening and a little bit more. And so many of those people, even if they don't have a whole lot for themselves, are still giving, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, like one of the other things that have really humbled me and changed my perceptions coming in is, I've now, through the process and through talking to people who I suppose correct your bias or your prejudices, I've now finally understood the difference between charity and effort, right? And it's not that people need charity. It's not about how much have you given, in terms of, what have you donated, but it's the effort you're making. And effort is so different from charity, and it's, effort for me is about also using the skill sets you have. So it's not just about writing a check and going, well, okay, there you go, I've done my part. But like, what are you good at? What can you transfer as a skill or as a practice or and what effort can you make? I think is the thing that's really smacked me in the face to go, yeah, I've donated stuff, but how much effort have I really put in?
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, so final and closing thoughts from both of you, and then we wrap up this season of This Is Us. And who knows, we may be back with some more in a short while. A funny point being made here by Carl. I think he thinks he's being funny. He says, can the next season be called Is This Us, where you only look at the negative stuff? All right, Carl, if you want more negativity, just look at the mainstream media. Just look at the news. There's plenty of negativity there. What do you guys think? Final thoughts?
Well, for me, the exciting thing is that I will still be interviewing people on my show every Thursday that are doing great work. I'm still, keeping the fire burning. I don't want it to just, come to a hard stop. I still think it's an important conversation to have. So I'm excited to hear more stories, connect with more people, and connect more people. We're building a network here, and it can live on. So I'm excited to still continue building that network and connecting the people that need help with the people that are willing to provide the help. So Aluta continua, This Is Us, Aluta continua.
And for you, Yetish?
Yeah, I think again, it's been quite a hard learning, as Lebang said, a massive roller coaster for the last 8 months to a year. And I think, for me, the big standout is every time you sort of run out of energy and steam and think, I don't know if this thing is going to happen. There are lots of other people who suddenly stick their hand up and you realize, like, shit, actually, there's to Lebang's point, there absolutely is. Every time I thought this is a bad idea, it's not going to go anywhere, somebody steps up and does something and I go, oh shit, actually, okay, I've got to roll my sleeves back up and get back in, because there is something here worth doing. So yeah, that's definitely what I've learned in the last few months.
Well, that is it for This Is Us, and we will we'll continue the conversations on cliffcentral.com anyway, because it's something we care about. It's something all of us care about. And we will be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. bright and early. And Lebang, we'll see you tomorrow as well, won't we?
Yes, indeed. See
Indeed.
ya.
And thanks, Yetish. Good to see you, and I'm sure that we'll continue to talk to you as well. Good stuff.
Perfect. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.